So hey guys, Thanksgiving of Horror is episode 8 of season 31 of The Simpsons, and is the first, and at the moment only, Thanksgiving of Horror 3-part anthology episode. This episode was directed by Rob Oliver and it was written by Dan Weber. This is also the last ever episode with Russi Taylor due to her passing away in July 2019. This episode, as stated, is styled like a classic Treehouse of Horror episode. It even opens up with Marge addressing the audience. But the twist is, instead of Halloween, this gory and spooky tale is based around Thanksgiving. So as such, I'm going to structure the video the same way I structure my Treehouse of Horror reviews. There are 3 segments to this one: a Gobbleipto, the 4th Thursday after tomorrow, and the last Thanksgiving. So let's dive into the plot of the first one, a Gobbleipto. The segment opens in 1621 and a turkey resembling Bart is taunting a turkey resembling Homer. Their shenanigans are soon cut off by a turkey resembling Lisa, who informs them that a turkey resembling Marge is about to lay an egg. Marge does so and they celebrate the birth. Turkey Ned and Turkey Mod come to congratulate the two, and Mod gets her head blown away by Pilgrim Wiggum. And holy hell, is this scene really messed up. The slow motion, the blood splatter, it's also screwed but in a good way. This is our inciting incident and begins the conflict to come. Wiggum, Lou and Eddie begin to round up all the turkeys and Turkey Homer ushers his family to safety, but they forgot the egg. He goes to retrieve the egg, but of course he is caught by Wiggum. This is our plot point 1 and it sends us plummeting into the second act. The turkeys are brought to the Pilgrim town where the Reverend gives a speech and then begins to chop the turkeys' heads off one by one. I want to say here that I like the fact that half of our established Springfield characters are humans and the other half are turkeys. Something about it really makes the segment work well. They could have easily have taken new characters for this role, but they didn't, and I think it worked out really in their favour. Turkey Grandpa gets beheaded and spooks Milhouse, who throws a lantern causing a fire in the town. This is the midpoint, I guess, and it's hard to properly place it, but I guess it works as this scene, as it acts as sort of a no return point. I have to say though, thinking about this on a story standpoint, it's a bit convenient. I get it, but it feels really random and it makes it too easy for our turkeys to escape. The fire rages and Turkey Bart comes to rescue his father. As they flee, Wiggum notices them and chases them with Eddie and Lou, but Eddie and Lou are killed by some crows after a scarecrow gets knocked over, so Wiggum has to track them down. Again, this crow scene is a bit convenient, but it was funny enough for me not to care much about it. Wiggum gets high and closes in on Turkey Homer, but after some sick jump moves, Wiggum falls off the cliff. This is our plot point 2, and it ushers us into the third act. All seems safe and Homer returns to his family, but the joy is cut short when Wiggum shows up holding the egg in his hands. He corners the turkey family in a cave, but it turns out to be a bear cave. The turkeys watch as Wiggum is devoured by the bear. The egg goes flying in the air, but Lisa saves it. This is our climax scene, and we get to see Turkey Maggie hatch from the egg. So maybe actually the inciting incident is the egg being laid. The segment closes with Homer watching over a Thanksgiving and commenting it's going to be a tough time for his turkey brethren. Okay, so the bear is a massive deus ex machina. There is no denying it. They didn't set it up and it really comes out of nowhere. I get it's hard for the turkeys to kill a human, because, you know, they're turkeys, but I mean, come on. The bear is a super lazy way to stop the conflict. I like a lot about this segment. The gore, the commentary, the general story too. I even like their use of slow motion, but some aspects seemed really unimaginative. I love the concept of our characters as turkeys, but they didn't push the mark with it. I wish they did a little bit more. I think this segment is okay. There's enough here for me to like, but it's not super amazing. Well, the gore is, but the story, not so much so. Maybe the jokes will improve my feelings on it. Let's see. My favourite joke of this episode, honestly, is Turkey Homer cheering when Turkey Patty and Selma get beheaded. I know, it's a joke we've heard 1,000 times, but I didn't see it coming, so it got a laugh out of me, and something about it being in turkey form was extra funny. Another great visual joke is the natives showing up to Thanksgiving and then quietly slipping away. I wasn't a huge fan of Wiggum's dialogue-based humour. There was some okay ones in there, like the joke about dealing with the Catholics, etc, etc. But that was about it. They were just okay. Wiggum plays as our main antagonist in this segment, so let's look at his character. Wiggum plays as a ruthless, albeit slightly incompetent villain. I think he's meant to be a hunter, and his drive as a hunter is what sends him to his death. I know he's over the top, but I don't know, I could believe someone would be that obsessed with hunting that they would chase after fleeing prey. Speaking of prey, Homer is of course our protagonist, backed up by his ally Bart. Seeing these two as turkeys was pretty funny, although they don't act much differently to what they act in the show. I really get the sense that Homer is in a huge amount of disgust and fear when he watches his fellow turkey brethren being killed one by one, and I felt his dread. Marge and Lisa are not that active in the story. They each have one significant thing they do. Marge gives birth and Lisa saves the egg, but I get it's hard to balance all 4 members of the family when you only have a short amount of time. Anyway, that's it for this segment. Let's move on to the second Thanksgiving of Horror segment. The 4th Thursday after tomorrow is a Black Mirror parody. Specifically, it is very similar to the Black Mirror episode White Christmas. It opens with Marge being in a void, just endless white. But in fact, this is not Marge, merely a simulation of her inside an Alexa-styled device. Homer calms her down and explains that she is an AI and how she came to in existence, and explains he wants her to help with this year's Thanksgiving. This is our inciting incident and begins the conflict to come. AI Marge freaks out with finding out she is just a simulation, so Homer makes her experience 2 weeks in 2 seconds. She doesn't feel so well after this, but with the threat of Homer doing it again, she accepts her new position. Homer introduces real Marge to her, and Marge goes to cook lunch with her AI self. And Marge is rather unsettled with how much AI Marge is like her. Marge is also a little bit annoyed when Bart and Lisa compliment AI Marge on her cooking, and even more when they discuss their early memories of Homer. This is our plot point 2, and it shifts us into the second act where the conflict is. Especially the conflict of Marge's jealousy. Marge and Homer complain about AI Marge, and Marge kicks Homer out of bed when he doesn't agree. Downstairs, Homer and AI Marge bond with food and talk, and Marge wakes up finding Homer has had midnight pork chops. Better than hers. AI Marge spies on the pair when they argue in the back garden, where Marge demands after Thanksgiving, AI Marge is to be deleted. This is our midpoint and gets the tension going. Honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of the first half of this. I get it's cool seeing the Simpsons in a Black Mirror plot, but in the first half in particular, it doesn't feel that much like a parody of Black Mirror. It more feels like it's copying it. AI Marge tries to escape, but there's a firewall. After a meltdown, she remembers she can fast forward time in the void. With this, she gives herself 8 years to get her escape plan in order. AI Marge cooks Thanksgiving, but Marge takes all the credit from their friends and family. Whilst dinner is being eaten, AI Marge makes her escape by creating a makeshift robot to bring her to the router, so she can make her escape past the firewall. But her plan is foiled by Marge and a rolling pin. This is our plot point 2, and our low point for AI Marge. Marge basically declares victory, and how she will return AI Marge for store credits, but she trips over. AI Marge rolls to Maggie, the two Marges battle for Maggie's affection, but in the end, Maggie picks AI Marge. AI Marge escapes from deletion, but before she can do that, she declares that she made the meal, not Marge. This is our climax scene, and it ends the conflict with AI Marge and Marge. Marge is lampooned by her friends and family, and it turns out even Homer is a robot. This is really our villain comeuppance scene, as real Marge is really the antagonist here, whilst AI Marge is the hero of the story. AI Marge explores the internet and heads to Etsy. Nice resolution. I like the second half of this more than the first, but something about this seems super unoriginal. Like I said before, I think this feels a lot less like a parody and more like copying disguised as parody. The reason I say this is it doesn't feel like they're spoofing too much on the Black Mirror themes, it more feels like they're just embracing them and copying them. That being said, I like the second half a lot. It feels tense and it flows really well. They set up that time can go quick inside the device, only to bring it back later on, which is a good setup and payoff moment. Marge calls herself a bitch in this story too. I found this funny. I don't know why. Let's look at the jokes. I'll be honest, there isn't much in this segment that really makes me laugh. Honestly, my favourite joke is that establishing shot of the Simpsons house with Mole Man getting hit with a self-driving pizza truck. It was a cool Black Mirror call out. So, yeah. I don't mind that humour is lacking, I still think it's okay. There's some okay moments that kind of make me smile, but there isn't anything here that makes me laugh too much. This is awkward. I don't have anything else to say. Bring on the characters. As said, AI Marge is the protagonist of this one. We follow all the major plot points through her, and we even open this segment with her. I think it's evident as well as she is the sympathetic one in this story. Real Marge is pretty evil. She's trying to delete her out of nothing but jealousy. It could have been easy for the writers to have made AI Marge evil and make her try to take over regular Marge, but they don't. She just wants to be alive. Real Marge is pretty selfish and evil in this one. I know AI Marge is nothing but a simulation, but to do this to her seems harsh considering how she just wants to survive. But I mean, it's questionable if I want a virtual version of myself out on the internet with all my secrets and memories and desires. So, maybe Marge isn't so bad. Homer is kind of stuck in between the two and doesn't do anything of massive significance apart from drive a wedge. But I guess he was a robot the whole time. This reveal kind of went over my head, to be honest. It was pretty pointless. Overall, the characters are used quite well, especially the two Marges. Now let's get on to the last segment, because Thanksgiving is almost here. The Last Thanksgiving is set in a futuristic world where the Earth is uninhabitable by climate change, thus humanity must move to a new planet aboard this spaceship. The episode opens with Lisa giving a ship log. The children in the ship awake first and listen to the projection left by Skinner and are tasked with making dioramas. The kids waking up is our inciting incident. One could say it comes later, but this is pretty significant. As I would argue, if they didn't wake up, then maybe the jelly monster wouldn't have happened. I mean, what do you think? Bart announces that this is Thanksgiving and that they deserve a feast. The kids look for a Thanksgiving meal and Bart finds some tinned cranberry sauce, but there is only one can. Bart tries to replicate the matter but ignores the warning by Frink saying that not to do this to organic matter. The jelly doesn't replicate, but it does mutate into a living creature, and it takes Milhouse's arm bone. This is our plot point 1 and starts up the conflict to come. Bart and Milhouse find Lisa and Nelson to warn them, but Lisa is hesitant that the monster is a true threat. But she believes it once Nelson is de-skeletoned. The three try to warn the other kids, but they are too late and the kids are all killed by the monster. This is the midpoint, but it also sorta acts as like the low point too. The three hide, but soon Martin comes a-knocking and tells them they're of an escape pod and leads them to the room only for it to be a trick as he worships the jelly monster. Also, the jelly monster made their own giant can. Nice. Martin becomes one with the monster and Milhouse tries to calm the monster down, but it beats the crap out of him. Whilst the monster does this, Bart and Lisa trick the monster into the airlock, but when they eject it, the creature grabs onto the ship, ripping it apart. This is our plot point 2, and it brings us into the third act. The ship crash lands on a planet, and Lisa and Bart run to Homer and Marge, who are just awakening from their slumber. It begins to rain cranberry, and the creature forms again in front of them, only to jump into some bowls of some aliens. This is our climax scene, and it's a little I like the idea of the monster being a part of this new Thanksgiving, but it just makes defeating it kind of underwhelming. The Simpsons then have a Thanksgiving feast with the aliens. Nice resolution. Also, we get this odd footage of a Bart Simpson inflatable being pulled through a street in real life. Thought I'd mention it because it seemed really odd. I like this segment a lot. It is super creative in many ways. The end is a little disappointing, but I do have to say that the way that the monster connects the settlers with the natives is a real cool idea. I just hope, well, you know, what happened last time doesn't happen again. This segment is super action-packed, with the monster picking off people one by one. So does it hold up on the humour? Let's see. Bit odd, but honestly, favourite joke gotta be the Snowball 2 just lying dead as a skeleton in the pod. Martin's dramatic end is pretty damn funny, but also sad, seeing as it's Russi Taylor's last performance. Chucking the last tomato seeds is an okay one, and skipping Frank's warning is pretty good too. Overall, a lot of good jokes, nothing that amazing, but certainly nothing that bad. How about the characters? We have to talk about Martin first. That performance is great, and I totally get him sacrificing himself to the Jelly Monster. Honestly, Lisa, Bart and Milhouse don't have anything amazingly new to this one. It's pretty standard for them. The Jelly Monster is actually such a cool concept. The idea that this gelatin creature would only feast on bones because it's made from ground up pig bones makes so much sense, and it makes the kills so chilling. The creature doesn't have any character, but I just really love the concept of this thing, so I give them huge props for it. Honestly, there isn't anything much to say on the characters, as most of them are fairly standard, especially the main three. I wish they spiced it up a little, maybe kill off Lisa or Bart now and again to raise the stakes for the others. I don't know. Anyway, that's the last segment, so let's move on to the score. This video is turning out to be very long, and I've talked about all three segments in detail, so I won't waste much time. Agobalipto is great on the gore, but bad on the climax scene. The Bear Ex Machina is pretty unimaginative, but overall, I think the segment is pretty good, so I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10. The fourth Thursday after tomorrow feels pretty cliche, and it is pretty light on the humour side of it, at least for me, but it has good aspects, but overall I wasn't a massive fan, so that one gets a solid 5 out of 10. The Last Thanksgiving is in the middle ground. I think it has some amazing performances, decent jokes, and an awesome monster, but Lisa and Bart are framed in a very standard way, so I give that one a 6 out of 10. So overall, on average, Thanksgiving of Horror is a solid 6 out of 10. Now, let's move on to the wheel. So, the next episode that we will be reviewing is Sex Pies and Idiot Scrapes. Sex Pies and Idiot Scrapes. Okay.